Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Future of Video series, and thank you for joining us today for our sessions on evolving ad strategies. We have an awesome lineup of speakers today and some great research to set the stage for our panel discussion with Fubo, Plex, Trusted Media Brands, and Yieldmo, as well as a keynote discussion with Fast Studios. Before we get going, I want to thank our sponsors for making Future of Video possible. So thank you to Audia, Bango, JW Player, and FPT Software. I also want to note that we will again host our in-person Future of Video event in Los Angeles, California, later on in November, and we look forward to seeing all of you there. My name is Sarah Lee, and I am a research analyst here at Parks Associates, and I am so pleased to be kicking off the discussion today. If you are not familiar with Parks Associates, we have been studying the services and technologies that consumers use in their homes and in their lives for 38 years, including broadband, smart home, and entertainment markets. Some of the research you'll see today pulls from our primary research of tens of thousands of households that we survey across the year about their use of entertainment services, perspectives on advertising, and preferences for new entertainment models. We also produce many syndicated reports throughout the year and do a lot of custom work to help companies have the best data to support business decisions. The video entertainment market in particular is so complex and now very fragmented. Our research solutions and tools are built to provide the best understanding of the details of the broadband and streaming services. And we do this through our streaming video tracker, our consumer insights dashboards, our quantified consumer studies, and the ability to customize our data set for our clients' needs. Now let's move into today's topic on evolving ad strategies. We know that the streaming market overall is extremely challenging due to how quickly it evolves and changes. And for businesses to succeed in this environment, they also need to evolve and change equally as fast. So throughout the next few minutes, I'll be talking about the rise of streaming services and the problem of fragmentation, the comeback that ads have had on streaming, along with the simultaneous price increases of ad-free tiers of service, the challenges that advertisers face today, and the innovative ways that advertisers are adapting to the rapid changes in today's market. So we'll start by taking a look at the traditional pay TV and OTT service markets. And you can see from this view that video consumption has changed quite a bit over the last 5 years. Streaming rose to popularity very quickly, while traditional pay TV suffered a significant decline. As of the end of last year, 89% of US internet households subscribe to at least one streaming service. So I think we can safely say that streaming is now the primary mode of video consumption in the US. But while streaming has brought about many advantages over cable, like the absence of contracts and increased consumer choice, it does come with some disadvantages as well. And those include things like the issue with the content being spread out across numerous services, as well as all the numerous bills that we all have to keep track of now. And because streaming is now and has been established in many consumer homes over the last few years, I'd like to reiterate that we are in the next generation of streaming, meaning that we are no longer in the development phase where the primary goal was to drive up subscriptions. Instead, the focus is on driving up subscriptions and profits with interactive and engaging elements during viewing, as well as a renewed emphasis on advertising. Over the past few years, we've seen many services raise prices and crack down on password sharing in an effort to bring in enough money to compensate for the production and technology used to operate these services. But because advertisements are another source of income in addition to subscription fees, the ad-based tiers of these services can stay less expensive to consumers. Today, the average household spends about $80 per month on streaming services, which is about the same amount that most also spend on pay TV services. the rising cost to operate a streaming business is passed down to consumers, who are also facing rising costs of their own. So consumers must continue to see the value of these services if they are to keep spending as much as they are currently. Many households are already changing what services they subscribe to on a regular basis, and many are also moving to an ad-supported tier or fast service to help maximize the content they have access to for the price. As of Q3 2023, 41% of US internet households reported watching a free ad-supported AVOD or fast service in the past month. And this is up from 31% just 1 year ago. More budget-conscious and ad-tolerant consumers are realizing that they can still get access to the same content, but at a cheaper price. And businesses get a boost in revenue, bringing the goal of profitability even closer than before, especially as more consumers choose the ad-based option. And the rising popularity of ad-supported streaming has fostered a variety of new entrants over the years. This is just a selection of the options available. Consumers now have so much more choice than before on what to watch, where to watch it, and how much they're willing to pay, as long as they don't mind compromising with ads. But while the variety of options available is challenging for consumers, streaming businesses, and content owners, it is also challenging for the advertisers themselves. As streaming became more popular, advertisers have had to shift their focus from traditional media to digital and social platforms. The rise of numerous streaming providers and devices has brought about its own set of challenges for advertisers. And these include things like platform and screen fragmentation, diverse operating systems with unique requirements, variations in content quality, uncertainty with traditional forms of measurement, adjusting to a wider audience reach but with viewers all watching at different times, and concerns with brand content alignment. There are so many options today as far as where consumers can watch video, from TVs to streaming media players, phones, and even smart displays and game consoles. But while this is great for consumers, it again does make it difficult for advertisers. With each device type, there are any number of operating systems and service platforms, all with unique requirements and reporting processes for partners. Even among services on the same device platform, there are differences that advertisers have to work through. Not to mention, data is also fragmented across operating systems and applications. Plus, total average video consumption generally has increased quite noticeably in the past 5 years. While the TV is still where most people watch video, there has been a jump in video consumption on a mobile phone. But this is nice because the mobile phone and tablet viewing experience is far more interactive and personalized than any TV-based streaming experience today. These devices also offer so many opportunities for commerce, ad engagement, and interaction with content creators, all of which are certainly a challenge to implement, but will ultimately enhance the ad experience for the viewer. But TV is catching up. T-commerce is where a purchase is made in response to an advertisement or product placed in a video stream on the TV. And this could be through the TV itself or through a second screen experience like a smartphone or tablet. Our data finds that 51% of connected TV device owners engage in commerce-related activities through their TV today. And 36% say they are likely to engage with at least one T-commerce concept. And that's like purchasing something that caught their eye during a show. A lot of consumers are already on their phones shopping as they watch TV, and as more companies are looking to make more money through advertising, implementing features like shoppable ads or QR codes to purchase certain products seems like a natural direction to go in for both sides, especially since the interest is already there. For example, Walmart recently made a lot of noise in the news when it broke that the company acquired TV manufacturer Vizio for $2.3 billion in cash. But the emphasis here is on the platform, which seems to be part of an overall bigger plan. Walmart's CFO even stated that today in the US, overall profits are mostly attributable to the in-store brick-and-mortar experience. But over the next 5 years, he expects the company to be less dependent on that income stream and lean more into incorporating other strategies like digital platforms, advertising, and e-commerce. The data received through holistic ecosystems like Amazon and now Walmart will be a powerful force for digital advertising, especially when it comes to those deeper and multidimensional relationships with customers, like the ability to connect ads to purchases and communicate back to advertisers about performance of a campaign. So as the industry evolves, there can be a great synergy between streaming, advertising, and connected devices. Advertising through companies like Disney, for example, can offer mutual benefits and value, like the ability to experiment with innovative and ad formats, like with Disney's Gateway Shop, which is a new shoppable ad format that was announced at CES earlier this year. And generally, because of the lower cost of entry of ad-based services, streamers can reach more households, and more households means more eyes on your content and more revenue from the ads, which help offset the expenses of providing that content. There is so much opportunity for new partnerships and interactive technology to be created and then implemented. And of course, more collaboration and transparent data practices are always valued so that more parties can better evolve and keep pace in this rapidly changing and challenging environment. Thank you, everyone, and please give us a moment as we prepare for the next session.
Working in emerging tech and connected services is exciting but tough. You are working in an innovative, dynamic market with few clear models of success to follow. You need to make decisions more quickly than ever. There's more information and opinions out there from more sources than ever. Staffing is short, resources are constrained. At Parks Associates, it is our mission to serve the industry with evidence-based insights. We exist to serve you, and we can help. We inform your strategy with diverse perspectives so you see the whole picture. We research industry movement, the trends that matter, the shifting competitive landscape, and product innovations that will change the market. We also bring you the voice of the consumer. We survey tens of thousands of US households every year with a data set that trends over decades, curating it for a deep understanding of consumer perspectives on emerging consumer technologies and services. We also bring you the voice of the channel. We survey and interview security dealers, small businesses, builders, property managers, and others to understand the channel and business customers' point of view. And your voice is so important. The experience and knowledge of the executives leading the industry are so valuable. You are in the trenches, and you can learn from each other. We bring the decision makers together in our executive conferences to make impactful connections, talk candidly about industry challenges, and inspire new solutions. We invite you to be our partner. You can learn with us through our research subscriptions. You can get custom data cuts quickly for product development, marketing decisions, and press releases. You can make inquiries of our analyst team when you want an outside opinion. You can assess new market opportunities and business concepts through custom research projects. You can host learning sessions for your team with our analyst workshops. You can add your voice to the conversation by joining us at our executive events. And you can help other industry leaders learn about you through our white papers and webinars. We are here to serve you. Be our partner.
Welcome back. What a great presentation from Sarah Lee. So I hope you all enjoyed some of that research. I'm excited to host our Visionary Spotlight. I'm Elizabeth Parks, the President and CMO of Parks Associates. And today we are very excited to welcome Stuart McLean, an amazing leader who has spent decades of his career in the entertainment space. Today, Stuart and I are going to be talking about the evolution of FAST, the metrics and measurements that matter, unifying the experience for advertisers and sponsors. And Stuart is going to share some of his real world experience with us through some of the case studies projects he's worked on. So Stuart, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm pleased to have you on stage. If you would go ahead and introduce yourself, the role at the business, and maybe a little bit more about FAST Studios.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. It's great to see you, and thanks for including me in your discussions today. I'm Stuart McLean. I'm CEO of FAST Studios. We're an independent studio based in Los Angeles and are a channel provider to the Tier 1 OTT and CTV platforms. We started FAST Studios just 3 years ago. Our team here saw the explosion of FAST and the opportunity to create new media brands in the FAST space. So we made the conscious decision to start in sports, since that was fairly underrepresented in FAST at the time, and is now picking up steam, which we're happy to be a part of. We currently operate and own 2 channels. The first is Racing America, which is our partnership with the Race Team Alliance, which is all the NASCAR Cup team owners. And the second is the Women's Sports Network, which is an aggregation of all women's sports, all the professional women's sports leagues on the Women's Sports Channel. So hope you're tuning into those.
Great. So thank you so much for joining us. And, we want to start the conversation off just about where we are in terms of the introduction of FAST services, the evolution, and that pickup that we're seeing with consumers really gravitating towards ad-based video services. So in your own words, take us back in time a little bit. Tell us from your view how things have unfolded here.
Sure. Well, I think that, the biggest move really happened when the major media companies came in and started acquiring the platforms. So when Fox came in and bought Tubi, Paramount bought Pluto, Comcast bought Sumo, obviously the big media companies were seeing the decline in cable TV and the cord cutting that was happening. So it was, initially a hedge against that to be able to stand up a streaming platform. And it really marked an interesting move in terms of what FAST was before that, which was mostly library content. Big procedurals, film-based channels. And as the major media companies came in, they obviously started now filling their ecosystem with their products. So all of a sudden the bar got really high, really fast in terms of, the depth of a channel, the size of the channel. Our team here is mostly cable executives. So, we build these as cable networks, although now we call them streaming TV networks. We won't come to market with fewer than 1,000 hours of programming. And, you have to really be at that level now to compete, because you are competing with a channel stack that is, all the major networks that, that we all know and love.
And so tell us a little bit more about the role of live TV, and especially we know you're very focused in on the sports side. So, how does live television come into play in terms of this transition really from the traditional broadcast television experience now to an on-demand, or of course those live experiences happening within games?
Sure. So we're obviously still seeing that migration to live in the FAST space. You look at the dominance of live sports right now, really driven by the NFL. I think NFL made up, 80% of the top 100 programs last year. And, so live is important. It's still very much dominated by the larger players, whether that's, Amazon, ESPN Plus. But, in the FAST ecosystem where we live, we happen to do more live than just about anybody. Racing America, 600 hours of live racing a year. Women's Sports Network, 200 plus hours of live. And we're starting to see the habits of the fast viewer migrate a bit, right? So fast has been more of a catch-all, a place where you can come in, you can catch up. Certainly in sports, we see a lot of value from our fans on being able to see re-airs of games and highlight packages, et cetera. But now that we're starting to offer live, we are starting to see that more traditional tune-in mentality. So Wednesday night is hockey night here at the Women's Sports Network. So we are seeing that tune-in value, and it also creates value for our distributors as well. So, as these platforms are rapidly evolving, improving their consumer experiences, really looking for what their audience wants, live is always a value. So that's a really nice marriage that we're seeing. And, for us, we're only seeing that grow in terms of true live tune in and fast.
Well, and we've seen these new services really double down on that content and the programming. And so live television is a whole different thing than content that might be syndicated and you're able to show that isn't live. There's also a lot that comes in play in terms of the sponsorships and the support of the programming. So can we talk a little bit about how you've seen a shift with advertisers and sponsors of these sports from the traditional, television environment to streaming with really a whole new way to feature some of these sports for consumers?
Sure. The benefit of the FAST ecosystem is for brands to do really more interesting work, quite honestly, when it comes to, in our case, sports. Because our channels are on specific verticals where we're only scheduling, NASCAR-based programming and NASCAR Cup team-based programming and live racing, and in women's sports, we're only programming women's sports. It allows us to move away from the negotiation, which is, I want X amount of spots during this quarter to make sure that I'm getting the max viewership, and it moves you into much more of a content integration, custom content place where, yes, of course, you're going to get your traditional ads delivered, but what else can we do? How can we dig deeper? How can we learn more about the athletes, learn more about the drivers? What are those custom pieces that we could take out of a break? Or, instead of going to a traditional, 2-minute pod, maybe that is an interesting, more story-based. And I think all of us that grew up in the advertising business knows that that's really what brands have always wanted, to be able to tell more story and to get closer to these athletes, where on the larger, more traditional platforms, there's less opportunity to do that, and the price point is much higher.
Well, yeah, the opportunities do seem endless in terms of having a very captivated audience, in the sense that you're showing them something that they want to see because the whole channel is all about that, and then be able to add shouldered content, add personalization about the sports players, being able to elevate the brand through these professionals in their daily lives, perhaps even. And create some following, of course, with the social media networks. Do you all, can you share a little bit about the extension there that goes beyond the viewing of the sport and directly into those professional athletes?
Yes, be happy to. One of the as we like to say, an interesting thing happened on the way to the market, which we were not anticipating, which is because we are concentrated on specific verticals and our ability not to be constrained by time in terms of programming. It enables us to be really valuable marketing partners to our leagues, to our teams. And, what that looks like is we did a wonderful series on the Women's Sports Network, The World According to Sage. And Sage Erickson, who is a top surfer, she won the US Open twice. We did 6 half hours on her. I mean, it's an incredible story. And it allowed us really to go deep into, yes, we know she crushes it on the waves, but what is she doing outside of the competition? How is she helping young girls come up into surfing? What is her travel schedule look like? All of that. And it really enables us to give this well-rounded view of the athlete and the drivers. And what we see, particularly amongst younger sports fans, is they want more story, they want more highlights, and from a programming standpoint, we're happy to deliver that. And curiously for us, because we've now created a pretty substantial library, we're now starting to syndicate it out to some of our media partners. So there's this very interesting kind of frenemy / collaboration going on in sports right now, where everyone is starting to come together. But it's really a wonderful opportunity to have that breathing room from a scheduling standpoint to unlock these great stories, and it's something that the fans are really responding to.
Well, and those fans really are aspiring to be like many of these professional athletes, and they're driven by, the sport and the people playing them. And so certainly you can see so many opportunities for those players to help elevate the show, just the demand for watching, as well as the different advertisers. But let's talk a little bit about metrics. I do have a question that's come in, and it ties into the next things we're going to talk about with measurements and understanding the sense of numbers in such a fragmented world. So the question from the audience is, what's effective in proving a fast network's value to advertisers? And then in addition to that, want to talk a little bit about what metrics matter and how to appeal to advertisers in this new, highly fragmented world that they're having to navigate as well.
Certainly, what we try to build here at Fast Studios is as many parallels as we can to what advertisers are accustomed to from kind of the old television model. And there's not a lot of new here. It's just bundled together a little bit differently. So, really the first and most critical thing for, by the way, a filter that we need before we take a channel out, but is the same as what an advertiser wants, which is the same as what a distributor wants, which is scale, right? So, for us, we achieve scale because we're delivering our networks out on Tubi and Roku and Vizio and LG, and that enables us to have scale across those platforms. And that's really the first most important thing. We made the conscious decision really only to take channels out that would be attractive to tier 1 distributors. If they're not going to take it, it's too long and too hard a road to go down from a business standpoint. And in terms of data, it's messy. And I don't think anyone's got a silver bullet for it. And I think we're all hustling as best we can to get some continuity there. And so for us, part of the dilemma is each platform is built on slightly different wiring. They report slightly differently because that's what's good for their business. All of these OTT platforms didn't get together at the beginning and say, let's all build this on a standard currency here and make life easier, which, by the way, how the traditional networks work, right? A Nielsen rating is a Nielsen rating on Fox or NBC or ESPN. We don't have that luxury in the OTT marketplace. However, the upside is the numbers are a lot more precise because that you've got a viewer there. You see the viewer, you see time spent, all of those great things. And even though our distributors might not report exactly the same way, it's close enough that we can start to put those packages together. And it's important, obviously, certainly for the advertiser, but also for us, right? So, we want to make sure that, we view viewership down to the individual asset, to the individual show level, so that we can get a feel for what's working, what's not working, what do our fans like. Sometimes, we can't believe they might not like something, but they don't. So we put that aside, and then we bring in more of what is sticking. So I think the good news here is that everybody is aligned in terms of the information we're trying to get, the type of programming that we want, to pay off both the fans and the distributors and the advertisers. So there is that goodwill here that, we are all pushing in the same direction. We would be, no one's got a silver bullet yet. But, to me, that's encouraging that, it is a little messy, but everyone's, heading in the same direction. Everyone knows where the end zone is. So we'll get there.
Well, and so that great challenge is in the integration of these different systems, and then the data sets that come along with them, being able to somehow integrate, aggregate information, and then be able to show and prove out that value to the advertiser. And so when you all are pitching the advertisers to come and sponsor your shows, your network, is it hard to convince them to move from some of the traditional places they've done advertising, or can you explain how they are as far as receptive? Do they see this in a new way, because it is so specific and so tailored that it's like, we got this audience here for you, and this is all they want to do, and they're gonna, everybody who comes in is interested in women's sports or NASCAR racing. So can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Definitely. Our team here does better than most when it comes to sponsorship. And a lot of that is driven by, one, being able to articulate the scale and the delivery of these networks, because really for the media buyers and brands, this is still a relatively new space. And, outside of the larger media deals of a brand, parking with a Disney because they can go into the Disney ecosystem and really see that great efficiency, we're obviously not competing with those deals. However, our ability to go deeper and not only deliver audience at scale, but also do really interesting, integrations and essentially create more assets that not only run on our network, but also run on our sponsors, social. And I think that the easiest parallel, because I was on, I'm relatively new as a publisher. I've only essentially been a publisher for 3 years, but before that, I was a marketing and advertising executive. And I was representing great brands, and I would spend a lot of my time knocking on the door at networks, say, we do this really interesting piece, can we do that? And you kind of wind your way around and finally get to a producer who may or may not want you there to begin with. But, because we're born from the fast space, and we, in order to get enough content to have a spine that was big enough to launch a network at scale, we essentially started with a studio that now has distribution. Because, I think on the Women's Sports Network, we produced 500 hours of original programming because there literally wasn't enough women's sports programming to launch a network with. And same thing with Racing America, right? So that for brands is super fun because it's a light lift for us. It's part of how we now do business. And it's something that brands have always wanted. And it allows them a really nice turnkey solution, but you have to be able to prove the value out, not across the larger ecosystem, whether that's on our network, on our YouTube channel, on their YouTube channel, at point of sale for them, if we want to extend down to the store level, right? You have to really be able to understand that because of this massive fragmentation, you need to be able to create marketing programs and content programs that can live in all of these places to make sure that the advertiser is getting as much value as possible.
Well, and let's take a minute just to talk a little bit about some of these content rights and in how that worked in the old world, and then what the problems are today in terms of being able to, split up the money, share money that maybe isn't even there, that used to be there. Can you explain a little bit more about why this is such a problem and a challenge for the sports owners, but then also the networks, whoever, whether it's streaming or traditional, who wants to distribute this kind of content?
Sure. Well, you're really seeing it, obviously in men's sports. And it's also, by the way, now happening in women's sports. I'll touch on both quickly. So and really the NFL is such a juggernaut that, you had two things happen. One, the dominance of the NFL as an example, and then new buyers coming into the market, right? So all of a sudden, what would now be probably considered, the traditional media players like, an ESPN, a Fox, now WB, now is competing against Amazon, who spent $1 billion for Thursday night on the NFL. And, the good news, bad news here is it's actually quite good for the leagues, right? They have more bidders. The dollars are going up across sports. Not necessarily great for the fans, because where am I going to watch the game, right? So it doesn't necessarily enhance that experience. And, you really see it. It was almost a perfect storm when you see now a collaboration between ESPN, Fox, WB to set up a platform where they're going to aggregate all of their sports together, which, does become a nice consumer experience, because they, like, similar to our fast channels, you're going to come in, you're going to get exactly what you want. Who would have thought that those companies would really come together in a marriage like that? On the flip side, it's still another bundle package. But, that's really being driven by the cord cutting, right? So, the mighty ESPN, and we love ESPN, but, they are now obviously pivoting as, I don't know, I think the forecast next year for cable is about, 55% of Americans. I think 40% of Americans has never even had cable. They don't even know what cable is. So, they're obviously pivoting into streaming and doing a lot of interesting things, including this net new bundle. And when you look at women's sports, it's the same thing. You see it with soccer, right? So we applaud the fact that the NWSL now has 4 big media companies that have all of a sudden, taken that to a whole nother level in terms of dollars and marketing. But once again, am I watching the NWSL on Scripps? Am I watching it on Paramount? Where am I going? We at the Women's Sports Network have value in this ecosystem as well, because whether or not we want to bid on big rights like that, and unlikely we would do that anytime soon, but we do have the opportunities to do near live and re-air, so we can stack Sundays with soccer. And, it doesn't really conflict with what the other partners are doing. And in fact, we collaborate very closely with them so that we can all show value for an individual sport. But it's messy. And I really kind of, the last thought there is just continuing to watch what the tech companies are doing in terms of disrupting this space. You've got, take Turner, for example, that has spent 20 years building up their NBA franchise. And at any given time, a large, an Apple or someone like that could probably come in and write a check that wouldn't make sense for them, right? So it's going to continue to be interesting and exciting for sure. It's good for sport, right? And it's, ultimately going to be good for the fan as everything smooths out.
Yeah, well, you bring up some really good points, especially about discovery and, just accessibility, especially in a world where most Americans might have been very used to being able to turn on broadcast TV and watch your local sports team play because you live there and it's on TV and you get the TV for free. We do have some data from our research work, our consumer survey work, saying 38% of sports watchers report being unable to watch a live sport event because it aired on a service that they do not have a subscription to. We're also showing that OTT sports subscription revenue will reach $22.6 billion by 2027. So certainly an enormous market to be tapped into. I think you picked the right genre a couple years back when you were launching your the different channels that you have. And so congratulations on all your success, and we look forward to tuning in. That is going to have to be the last of our comments today. But Stuart, I really appreciate you joining us and sharing, the amazing work that you've done over decades of time in the entertainment industry, and now dealing with FAST services. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Elizabeth. This was really fun.
Great. And if you will bear with us, we will be back in just a second for our interactive panel discussion with Eric Sorensen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Future of Video series. What a great, fantastic discussion with Stuart McLean of Fast Studios, especially discussing how the tech companies are evolving and looking at sports content, and really fascinating story there on their Fast Studios. So really appreciate him being here. And I want to thank you for continuing to stick around as we jump into our panel session on ad-supported connected TVs. My name is Eric Sorensen. I am a research analyst here at Parks Associates and also the director of our streaming video tracker product. I've spent nearly 20 years in sports, media, and entertainment, and I'm thrilled to be moderating this session today. So this session is going to dive into the rapidly changing world of advertising in connected TVs, as well as get insights from industry executives. We'll explore some ad strategies that are evolving and keeping pace with new technologies and the viewer preferences that we're seeing today. Topics will include the rise of programmatic advertising, the effectiveness of targeted ads, and innovative ad formats that are reshaping the viewer experience in ad-supported streaming platforms. We hope to learn from our executive panel today about the challenges and opportunities that these changes present and how they're influencing the future of connected television advertising. So before we introduce the panel, I'd like to present some additional data related to ad-supported streaming and the overall landscape of advertising in television. So today's streamers are seeking a path to profitability. All the services are looking for a way to find new ad revenue streams, not only with mergers and acquisitions, but new tiers of service, including AVOD and premium tiers. But they're also finding new ways of innovating on the ads themselves. So ad-based streaming services, as Sarah mentioned earlier, are the fastest growing business model in streaming. In Q3 2023, 41% reported watching free ad-based streaming services in the prior 30 days. And that's up from 18% in just 5 years. So when it comes to generating additional revenue, AVOD and FAST services are continuing to grow, and nearly all services have an ad-supported tier now. But not only are they starting to deliver on the subscribers, as in the case of Netflix and Disney, but also on the revenue from the advertisers. So in Netflix's third quarter earnings call, Netflix revealed that in countries where the ad-based options are available, about a third sign up to a basic tier with ads. Now, on the other hand, Hulu, which launched in 2008, has always offered an ad-supported option, although in its early days, it was free with limited content. So advertisers have always been at the heart of broadcasting, both traditional pay TV, MVPDs, and now within streaming. But the smart function within televisions is leveraging new advertising opportunities to drive revenue. While ad-based services continue to change the market, the role of interactive ads is also having a huge impact on revenue and engagement. These are new experiences that are beginning to emerge today and are setting the expectations for the video experience. Parks Associates has done extensive consumer research in the growth of a new advertising strategy called T-commerce. T-commerce is TV-based commerce, where a purchase is made in response to an advertisement or product placed in a video stream on the TV. Consumers can buy the goods through an interactive feature on the television or through a second screen app or a mobile or tablet device. So if you're interested in learning more about this research, please let us know in the chat, and we'll be happy to provide you some more details about our T-commerce research. So a total of 88% of all US internet households shop online at least once a month. On average, consumers in internet households are making 6.8 online purchases per month. And when it comes to testing out new T-commerce features on their television, 1/3 of respondents says that they are likely to eventually try out this tested feature. So consumers still have a love-hate relationship with ads and advertisers. 59% of households get annoyed at ad breaks that appear way too often, ad breaks with no ads playing, and ads that repeat too often. So as of now, these are all common occurrences with ad-based streaming, but the experiences continue to improve over time. So with that, I hope that in this session, we can provide you some insights on the challenges of advertising and streaming, as well as how effective streaming advertising is to the brand and the advertiser. And I hope that our panel can provide some insights on the new technologies such as AI and T-commerce that are shaping the advertising community. So let me introduce our panel and then get into the discussion. For today's discussion, we have Matt Felder, who is the VP of Ad Sales at Fubo. Jill Goldfarb is the Senior Vice President of Streaming TV at Jukin Media. Todd Hay joins us as the VP of Revenue and Engagement from Plex. And Sambit Patnaik is the VP of Product for Connected TV and Video at Yieldmo. So with that, I would like to now bring in Matt. Matt, I think you're with us today.
Hi, nice to see you.
Hey, Matt, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what Fubo does.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Good afternoon. Well, I'm a vice president of ad sales at Fubo. I'm managing half of the Northeast as well as the West Coast. I've been at Fubo for just under a year after spending 18 years at Scripps, Discovery, and then Warner Brothers Discovery. I've loved the accelerated pace and constant learning in the CTV and streaming space. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, but I now live in Westchester County, just north of New York City. I'm excited to be here today representing Fubo. Fubo is a leading sports-first live TV streaming platform. We offer subscribers access to over 55,000 live sporting events annually, as well as leading news and entertainment content. And the platform aggregates over 300 networks. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you giving us a little bit of the background. Fubo is a fascinating product, and thinking about its history as well has certainly been interesting to learn about. So we really appreciate you being here and looking forward to hearing more from you. Next on our panel, we have Jill Goldfarb. I think she is here with us as well. Hey, Jill, good to see you.
How are you? Nice to see you. Thanks for having me. And thanks to everybody who's listening.
Yeah. So tell us what you guys do.
So as you said, I'm the SVP of streaming TV, which means I oversee our streaming TV business for we are now Trusted Media Brands. And for those of you who are not familiar with Trusted Media Brands, we are a community-driven entertainment company with over 250 million consumers worldwide across streaming, TV, social media, web, and print. Our portfolio of brands range from FailArmy and Pet Collective to Reader's Digest, Family Handyman, and Taste of Home. In terms of our streaming business, you can see, I think, the slide that's next to me. We have I run a portfolio of 5 TV channels, mostly distributed across FAST and AVOD. Our 5 channels are FailArmy, Pet Collective, People Are Awesome, Mother Spy, and our newest but fastest growing channel, At Home with Family Handyman, based on the great brand of Family Handyman. We are distributed globally across 30 plus platforms. We have 16 million minutes viewed per month. Our daily average watch times are really sticky. People come and find us and stay with us. And as you can see, we are really distributed across some of the major platforms in the FAST and AVOD world.
Well, thank you so much for being here. You talked about it being sticky. I will tell you that my kids don't necessarily look for People Are Awesome or FailArmy, but when they find it, I come into the room and I'm like, what are you guys watching? How long have you guys been watching this? So definitely very sticky content. So congratulations on that. And thank you for being here.
Thanks, Eric.
Next on our panel is Todd Hay. Todd, I believe you're with us. Hey, Todd.
I am. Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
Hi. Yep. My name is Todd Hay. I'm the VP of Revenue at Plex. Been with Plex for about 4 years, but I've been a user for almost 10. Plex is really focused on, how do we help people engage with the content they want, no matter where it is. And as part of this, it allows us to completely stay independent and deliver and help users find content, even if it's not necessarily on our platform. We've seen throughout our history, the users that come to Plex love content. They really engage with that content, are fascinated by curation and sharing and feeding, their opinions out to the world. And what we've learned is while LLMs and recommendation engines are fantastic, the best discovery of content is from your friends and the people you work with. And that's what we're helping to try to drive.
Well, thank you for being here. I think fascinating is how long Plex has been around that a lot of consumers don't necessarily realize. So we look forward to hearing your insights on our panel here in a few minutes. We're going to dive into our questions, but I have one more panelist to introduce. And last but not least is Sambit Patnaik. Sambit, are you there?
Yes. Hi.
There you are. Hi, good to see you. Tell us what you do at Yieldmo and a little bit about the company as well.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Excited to be here. So I'm Sambit. I work for Yieldmo. Been here for almost like 4 years. I lead product on video and CTV in here. So Yieldmo is an ad exchange at the very basic. We have premium omni-channel supply. We started out with mobile, but now are in CTV. Some of the logos that you see on the slide, those that we work with. We also have direct demand platforms connections with the biggest ones, Trade Desk, Google, and Amazon. And then how we differentiate is our creative DNA and AI ML. I know AI ML is a buzzword. We have been investing on that for the last 6 years. It's the more traditional AI instead of generative AI. So predictive AI is what we work on. And what we do is our creatives are optimized for based engagement and for based kind of viewability on the AI technology that we build. And so we have a massive attention data set that's proprietary that we have built over the last few years. And we do audience targeting using first and third party data.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for being here. And I think one of the things I want to ask you about maybe later in the discussion, once we can get everybody's thoughts on it, is I was on a panel a couple of weeks ago, and somebody brought up the idea that if somebody is playing pickleball in a movie, when they go to a commercial break, there should be an ad for pickleball. And I'd love to get your thoughts later in the discussion about, how close we are to that when we talk about innovations and AI changing the advertising landscape. But thank you for being here. I'd like to bring all of our panelists now, and maybe we can see all of their faces. Fantastic. And let's dive right into this discussion. So we're talking about advertising. Clearly AVOD and FAST is continuing to grow. One of the most largest used or most adopted services. We mentioned it a few times. 41% of consumers are now using a free ad-supported streaming service within the last 30 days. And so I think there's two pieces to that. Not only is there growth in the use and the adoption of AVOD and FAST, but also what does that mean to the landscape of advertisers? So Matt, I wanted to start with you. And when you think about the current state of the market as it relates to advertising and connected TVs, where are we? What are we looking at? What is the current state right now?
Yeah, I mean, I keep hearing this throughout today's session. I think it started with Sarah, but that continued growth in the sector has really shifted that landscape. So CTV has really gone from experimental to essential in advertising and marketing campaigns. 53% of video impressions in 2023 were attributed to CTV. Consumers are more comfortable than ever before streaming, especially when it comes to live sporting events. So 70% of CTV users streamed sports last year, and 80% of all US adults consumed video via streaming. So that shift in habits and behavior really has led to a shift in advertising. It really just comes down to CTV's ability to combine the reach and impact of traditional television that everyone's used to, but with the precision and efficiency of digital advertising. So marketers are better able to understand that return on ad spend and just have a little bit more tracking of where their dollars are going and what they're doing for them.
Yeah, and I know from a standpoint of having premier content for Fubo, right? You guys, I mean, sports content drives eyeballs. Everybody knows that across the board. And I know there's a significant opportunity there. But maybe, Todd, from your perspective at Plex, which may not have as much of a library of sports content, or maybe you do, but as it relates to your product and your thoughts, where do we stand right now in terms of advertising and connected TVs?
Yeah, I think we've certainly seen a large shift from OTT, OTA, kind of traditional broadcast into the CTV and the streaming market. Watching a lot of advertisers try to figure out how to take advantage of the addressable CTV. The other big shift we're seeing is from into FAST, where we're starting to see our content providers trying to control the IP and deliver a lot of that lean back experience, and advertisers trying to figure out exactly how to take advantage of that. The other big shift I've seen is a push towards programmatic, and that's changing the way advertisers are looking at the world as well. How do they build their audience? How do they drive find their audiences everywhere that they are?
And we'll talk, I think we'll talk a little bit about how advertising is done today in terms of the programmatic side, but maybe we can get some thoughts from Jill on, what is the most common ways that advertising is done today. And then I think later in our discussion, we'll talk a little bit about what you guys see as the future and what you hope is the future of how advertising is done. But Jill, your thoughts on how advertising and streaming is done today?
Yeah, and look, I think Todd touched on it a little bit, and so it was a good segue. As I mentioned, we are a company of brands. We run 5 streaming channels in our portfolio, but we also have a global ad sales team that sells our channels. For us, it's direct and sponsorships, as well as Todd mentioned, programmatic is always a large part in the FAST and AVOD space. Also, within that, we also have the ability, one thing that we offer, because our brands are located across multiple platforms, is we have the ability to tie in our campaigns across all of our platforms. I think others on the panel can talk a little bit more about how the platforms can sell, but they have the on-screen units as well as banners. And we also work really closely with all of our platform partners on sponsorships and other unique ad opportunities.
Well, so Sambit, from your perspective, I think if I understand your work in the company, you guys are a vendor for advertisers, right? Or you guys, how would you describe what you do on a regular basis?
Yeah, so we are an exchange, and what we do is we connect publishers, like such as Todd, Matt's company Fubo, and Jill's company TMB, to advertisers. And it's not a direct connections in any way in this buying platforms on the advertiser side, such as the demand side platforms. And on publisher side, they might use an ad server to kind of manage their inventory. And we are kind of think of us like a stock exchange, more or less, and then we'll facilitate that transaction. We are 100% programmatic, so all that happens in our platform is programmatic. We weren't programmatic when we began, but slowly, as the industry has changed, we are 100% into that. And so all this advertising or transactions really happens real time. An audience comes in live in one of the platform. One advertiser wants to target it. We facilitate that. That's in a simple way to explain what we do.
So primarily programmatic, right, is what we're seeing today. I mean, does anybody disagree that I'm not saying the right thing here? But isn't programmatic advertising primarily the way that advertising is done in streaming today?
Certainly I'm sorry if you don't mind jumping in. It's certainly what we've seen. We initially tried to build out a direct sales force and realized that my programmatic was outselling. CTV US, we're sold out, through the programmatic side. Now, we're a relatively new entrant. We've only been in the streaming business for a few years, so we had the luxury of being a technology company starting by building out from a programmatic perspective. But it's hard. It's hard for direct sales outside things like custom ad treatments to compete with what we see in the programmatic.
Yeah,
so
Eric,
now
I would
what
just
about, from your perspective? Yeah, I think you were.
I would just jump in. I mean, I would agree the majority is being transacted programmatically, but when it comes to those kind of cultural moments like live sports where people are still tuning in, live and appointment viewing, I think there is still some managed service and direct sales there with advertisers that want to really connect and be in the moment in those cultural zeitgeist events that live sports are.
Yeah,
Jill, how about you? How is this sort of evolving, and what you're seeing sort of changing today?
Yeah, look, the vast majority of it is programmatic, but at least on the channel side and the brand side, we do see a fair amount of advertisers wanting to come and be part of our brand, excuse me, and work with and sponsor either shows or the channels, as well as I mentioned, we can do a 360 campaign across streaming and social and print and web. So we offer that as well, and they can do different parts. So for us, it's a little bit of a mix.
Got it. And I do want to remind our audience that we have a poll question. So if you could take the poll question, and then as we get a little further in the discussion, I'm going to ask our panelists the thoughts on the poll question. But I want to spend a little time talking about the data. And so when we think about the data, what are clients and brands and agencies looking for from a service or platform in terms of data? I know, we hear from some of our clients how fragmented it is. We get different metrics from different, different platforms. I'm curious if as I continue to talk to industry leaders like yourself, if that's still the case, or if we're getting a better experience with the data, or is there still enormous amounts of challenges with the data? Maybe Todd, you can provide some insights from your perspective.
Yeah, I think all of that is true, actually. From a data perspective, there is a ton of data. I have an AI background, so it makes me really excited when we have petabytes of data that we're collecting. But there's a couple different challenges, right? So we have one piece of analyzing and understanding that data and learning what to do with it. We talked earlier in the keynote about normalization of data. Everybody captures the data differently. We share data differently. We often have different meetings for the same terms. I mean, I'm often fighting with my platform partners about what the meaning of an impression is. And then to combat it, there's regulation that is constantly changing in terms of what we can collect, what we can share around privacy. So, I think it's a fascinating time. We have far more ability to understand the performance, not only of our content, but also for advertising. At the same time, where there's competing restrictions and competing understandings of what the data means.
Anybody else thoughts or comments on the challenges with data or standardization of data points?
Yeah, I think just adding on to what Todd says, I mean, the incoming deprecation of third-party cookies, which is largely a web concept, but that's going to impact CTV just because most of the audience segments are created out of those. And as so CTV uses primarily device ID, IP to target, apart from the linear content info, like the channel info or genre or what publisher it is. But that device ID based targeting or IP based targeting, that's gonna get impacted not by privacy regulation, by also by the incoming cookie deprecation by Chrome. So yes, constantly.
So Matt, just on that point a little bit. I mean, when advertisers are coming and looking at the data, I mean, what are they saying makes a campaign successful? Like, what's a successful ad campaign to an advertiser or a brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer to that is it's not one size fits all. Success in CTV is measured the same way it's measured on other campaigns. So whether it's performance, branding, people ultimately, advertisers want to improve ROI by linking that media exposure to business outcomes. So I would say, success is different. We certainly do see advertisers looking for performance and really optimizing in that way, but we also do see branding when it comes to those large events, and striking that balance between performance and branding, and kind of not every ad needs to tell someone click here to buy. Sometimes there is branding is still important, because you can just get so much fatigue when everything is performance.
Yeah. So Jill, from your perspective, when advertisers come to you, what are they looking to do? Attach to your brand, attach to your content? I mean, how do you sell across advertisers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Matt said is 100% right. Our ad team works super closely with our advertisers, and everybody has a different goal in their campaign, whether it's, to Matt's point, performance and brand, and then whether it's, is frequency important? Is less frequency important? Completion rate. And then the question about brand. And we work super closely to create custom. I think that's the biggest thing. We have an in-house production team, and a lot of our programming is original programming that's designed specifically for our TV channels. So we have the ability to work with advertisers and customize their messaging into our programming as well. So that's another way we've worked with advertisers.
So I'm seeing we got a question from the audience, and maybe somebody could raise their hand and see if they want to take this. But the question is, how do you balance the need to collect data for advertisers with privacy data security expectations that the consumer has? So I know, clearly, looks like Todd's ready to jump in.
It's not like this is a constant debate within my company or something.
Right. I wouldn't think so.
And in fact, our core audience, is very privacy concerned. So it's been fascinating for us as we've kind of transitioned through this. What we found, and it might be unique to kind of Plex's value proposition, the more we can offer value to the user for, the data we're collecting, obviously personalization's an obvious one. The better signals that we get, the better we can promote to them. But that's what we're seeing, is when a user can engage because it helps their community, it helps drive recommendations, they're more open to that. The other side is, I think part of the advertising industry is shifting back. Everything old is new again to kind of contextual. And the big thing that we talk about is it's not necessarily capturing personal identifiable information or the behavioral of the old world, but it's capturing intent. How do we understand what users want to see, who they want to see it with, where do they want to see it? And then trying to map that to the advertisers, looking for how those intents match to their audience.
Anyone else want to jump in on sort of the privacy concerns? Okay, I can move on to the next question that I had here. So, sort of thinking about brand safety a little bit, right? Each of you are in different facets of the industry, and advertisers, certainly want to attach their brand to the right products and the right content. But how do you think about brand safety and relevance when OTT and streaming services are so fragmented, and there's so many different options and choices? Maybe Jill, we'll start with you when you think about brand safety a little bit. How do you guys address it?
Yeah, so for us, it's one of our biggest priorities. That starts. We have I'm going to say a 3-step brand safety process that's pretty rigorous. And first, it starts with our brand guidelines themselves and how we think about our brands and the experience we want our viewers to have, and that they're relatable and positive. So that's pretty much the first cut. And then we do a rigorous legal clearance. And then the final step is what we would have called in traditional TV broadcast standards and practices, or standards and practices. We model ours after FCC rules. Some of our platform partners are even stricter than the FCC. So we make sure that we're taking that into all account. And then wherever our programming lives, and whatever platform we're on, we bring that everywhere.
Sambit, did you want to comment on that as well?
Yeah, so for us, like as a platform, it's a 2-step process instead of 3 steps. One is like, just making sure that the inventory or publisher that we onboard, they are of reputation, and such as all the companies that's represented here. And second is like just using kind of third-party validation services to make sure there's no traffic which is like kind of fake and coming out of elsewhere. And there's a lot of reliance now on content metadata, which has been sparse, but getting good quality content metadata in the bid stream, that makes us, ensure that there's brand safety when advertisers are kind of putting their ads against any show or any content, that it's good content rather than just some user generated or some other types of contents out there.
That's been a big one that we've heard about. The transparency in general, and content transparency is huge, and the more that we can share. But that also is part of the conflicting nature, right? So at the point at which advertisers want to see everything about the content so that they can do their own checks and balances on safety, while the content providers themselves don't want people targeting specifically to their channel. And in the US, it's illegal to share title, right? So we have all these situations, and the IAB's content object itself is sparsely supported. So it's a difficult one. I know that we work very hard to make sure that we have transparency, not only to our advertisers, but to our content partners, sharing a lot of the data that we have so that they can understand. And then there's COPPA and some of the other things that we do. But to be fair, it's a constant struggle, because advertisers shockingly aren't necessarily always clear about what it is they're selling. Being able to understand, what those ads are that we're serving. There's still a lot of manual work that has to go in to make sure, especially as we go into a political season.
So we have another question from the audience that I want to try to ask, and I'll just let anybody jump in if they want to nod their head and try to answer this one. I think it's pretty simple, but the more personalized the ad is the completion rate significantly higher? What sort of numbers are you seeing as the ad becomes more personalized to a consumer's viewing habits?
So I'll jump in here. On CTV, and correct me, Matt, Jill, or Todd, it's 100% completion. Most of the ads today, there's no skip capability, unlike on YouTube. So everyone watches the ads through completion, no matter how personalized it is or not. There might come a time where it's skippable in the future, and then that will tell us how and relevant the ads were. But today that's not the case. I mean, in the vast majority of like inventory that we transact on.
Yeah, is there any platforms, any services that allow you to skip ads? I know Friendly, I think we wrote a report recently that Friendly TV did an update to their VOD system that somehow allows you to still fast forward through the commercials. But is there any platforms out there that, I mean, I know YouTube has changed their algorithms a little bit to not allow that, but is there anything out there that allows consumers to fast skip commercials that you guys can think of?
We've seen some interactive ad partners that isn't necessarily a skip ad functionality, but they'll have capabilities where if you engage in the ad, whether it's a poll or something, that it will drop the rest of the pod. So it might become a single ad pod, which is much higher value. We haven't seen a lot of that in practice. We haven't seen a lot of people buying those ads yet, but they tend to be very high value. So I love it if people buy those. But that's all I've seen in the space.
The only thing I would add is that, the completion rate is the same. I would say that when you have that personalization, though, you do get more attention and more engagement with the ad when it's being
so it's the higher engagement that you're measuring there as the ad becomes more personalized, right?
One of the custom ad products we have, we call add to watch list. It's mostly for content providers where we can run a trailer or a video and pop up a button on any of the clients to add to watch list so a user can come back. And when we ran them blanket, we had a relatively low click rate. But as we started targeting them, more from a content personalization engine, we started to see the click-through rate on those go up significantly. And at least on the content side, which I can track, really high value. Somebody who's added something to their watch list is 4 to 7 times more likely to watch that content. So I, of course, get excited as we get into transactional ads that you guys are seeing. Do we start to see that same kind of behavior, whether it's true transactions or even just a register of intent, follow up or second screen responses?
Sure. So we did tally up the poll, and I want to give you guys a chance to sort of respond to this a little bit. So our poll question again was, which statement do you agree with the most? I don't know if we can pull that up. Which statement do you agree with the most? The ads I see are not relevant to me. The ads I see are relevant to me. The same ads repeat too many times, and I'm willing to pay more to have ads removed from my content. So that was the poll question, and our results, with a whopping, overwhelming number, 63% of those who have taken our poll, thank you for participating, say the same ads repeats too many times. So our audience that's watching you guys during this discussion feels like they're seeing the same ad too many times. So I guess my question really is, it's twofold. One, if somebody wants to address, how do you prevent that? And then 2, do you feel like that from a platform standpoint or from a content standpoint that is actually the case? Or is it just consumers feeling like, I don't want to watch ads?
I can jump in. Sorry, I jump in on.
No, that's great.
It's actually something we battle quite a bit, and we've built a ton of technology to help us really, try to prevent it. Again, it's one of these situations where, at least in the programmatic market, it's been very difficult because identifying that it's the same ad, you've got, especially when we have different DSPs and SSPs, the same creative might be coming through with different tags. Ad domains aren't necessarily being accurately populated. So from a publisher side, it's hard to solve. We need more help on the upstream side to solve it. But we definitely get complaints about it. And we feel like we've reduced it a lot, but it still happens.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I think the real-time nature of programmatic and then the lack of standardization around a creative ID or advertiser ID, which IAB has been working on. I think they're still on it. That's the essential problem, that when an ad comes back from programmatic, is it like a unique advertiser, a new advertiser, or is it an advertiser that was displayed before? That becomes the issue. To manage that, I think there has to be consistency across all the programmatic platforms. And then there's obviously Todd mentioned about direct versus programmatic, how how many times does a direct ad show to a user versus programmatic ad. So that also managing on the ad server side, that's a challenge.
Jill, any thoughts on that from your perspective?
I mean, I think Todd and Sambit hit the basic problem. I mean, obviously on the direct side, we can frequency cap when we have a specific ads that we're placing, obviously. But on the programmatic side, I think they've outlined the challenges. And just to echo, what Todd said, I think it's something that we're all trying to figure out how to make better. I think we're all aware of it, and just trying to figure out as a community, how do we do it better?
So we're down to about 8 minutes here, and I would be remiss if I didn't talk about AI, right? We got to talk about AI a little bit and the impact on the advertising community itself. So maybe Matt, we'll start with you and spend a little time talking about the technical advancements that are influencing AI in terms of ads or the immersive experiences that maybe you're seeing, maybe it's on your platform or somebody else's, but just in general, what can we expect from integration of AI into advertising?
Yeah, I mean, it's here. It's already happening, but I think it'll continue to evolve. One of the things I think, I mentioned my linear background, and we've always seen like A/B testing of creative, but never before have I seen, hundreds of versions of creative served for that addressable audience. I think as AI emerges in the ad space, it'll just create more custom opportunities for advertisers to connect with their consumers. So we launched a product, AI-generated instant headlines at Fubo that generates contextual news topics while they're live on air. So when you're on the guide, scroll over that program and it tells you what's being talked about. So the viewers can really tune into what they want. I think we'll just see more emergence of AI to help with the customer user experience and connecting with consumers. And then the last thing I would say is I think that AI will help us make advancements in that T-commerce that you talked about, Eric, and how we can, create a better commerce experience in the CTV space beyond the, QR code or the second screens that are there now.
Right. And, it's funny. I mean, we do hear it quite a bit that, the mobile experience of streaming content is so much easier and better. I can share the content with somebody. I can like the video. I can, and we just haven't quite gotten there yet with the smart TV. But with AI and thinking about it being personalized and programmatic, including the ads, right? If the ad is more personalized to me, will we see larger engagement from that, right? And so as that AI continues, the other piece, maybe Todd, you can speak to this a little bit about, is immersive experiences. I'm assuming that that's contributing to AI and the whole ad experience a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, I think reality is AI touches every single aspect of the business, right? So it's not just the personalization. It's not just how do we bring in different aspects. It's how do we understand our audiences? How do we reach out to our audiences? Even big place we are is how do we optimize integration with the programmatic market? We're finding bid rates change by device, by day, by content, by by location. Being able to understand all of that data. And understanding who audiences are, I think this is why I love AI. Humans think we're good at pattern matching, but we suck, right? And that's what machines are for. And so being able to understand what a real audience is, it's not necessarily suburban moms or high net worth individuals. It gets closer to people who happen to watch Hallmark, which we learn also watch Bonanza. I never would have guessed that those things go together. And when you start to understand that, being able to, for our product, influence what other friends they should connect with, who they should be watching to understand what they should watch next. There's so many different places that it can help impact. It goes well beyond the headlines of LLMs and ChatGPT. Although that is pretty fun, being able to use natural language to what should my wife and I watch tonight. I mean, that.
Jill, any thoughts from you on the influence of AI and immersive experiences in the ad space?
Yeah, I'll tackle it a little bit from the content space. I mean, I think Todd again hit it right on the head. I'm going to say the TV evolution, not to get too deep, has been about giving viewers, more choices and options from the original 3 broadcast networks to cable to now we have FAST, and we're seeing, hundreds of FAST channels on all the platforms. A lot of the platforms are working with AI to increase discovery so that we're not limiting the amount of channels. We're making sure that everybody still has that great choice to find new channels, but using AI to find that. And then obviously that then leads back to being able to sell better as more and more advertisers also come in.
I heard and I'm going to mess this up, but I'm going to give it my best shot. The combination of AI and human input is still necessary, right? I heard somebody speak that said, we teach our kids about a bike and they recognize that it's a bike. Then when they see a bike without wheels, they still think that that's a bike, right? Or they see a rusted bike tied up to a pole, they can still recognize that it's a bike. But AI, as of today, can't necessarily recognize that as a bike. They just recognize it as pieces. So when you guys think about programming with AI or content with AI and ads with AI, how important is the human interface tied to the AI aspect?
Look, I can go. So we have been using what's called predictive AI, and that's like you have to train the models, and that's called supervised learning and more technical. But in that area, you always have a human in the middle, just making sure that when you're training the model, that any output it produces, you're kind of classifying it and saying it's right or wrong. And now generative AI is a step forward, like especially with this LLMs. It has trained already with like large amounts of obviously data, and now it's going and kind of generating content based on that training. So that in video or generating video ads or display ads, it just generates them, and so someone has to kind of vet it still. It's not at a place that you could just launch those ads. So it's still human in the middle when you want to launch any of those into kind of real world campaigns and all. But that's how I would separate the traditional predictive AI. Obviously, a lot of training just because you're trying to solve business problems. And then generative AI, much more self-capable, able to do certain stuff, but you are not going to launch anything without vetting those, really.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, go ahead, Ted.
I was going to say what I'd add to that is that one of the challenges with AI is it's backward looking, right? It can generate a lot of knowledge based on what it's seen before. You have to be very careful about how you introduce novelty and discovery outside otherwise, as we've seen, people get stuck in bubbles based on what the AI is generating. So one of the things we think about is what do you want to see and what should you see? So how do you integrate curation from our programmers? How do we bring new content in that hasn't been seen before and blend that with the things that the AI is producing? And I think we're getting better at that. We're starting to see that, whether it's unsupervised learning or generative AI, like you talk about, Sambit. There are technologies, but that cold start and the fresh content still pose challenges.
Yeah, exactly. I think someone was saying like video and interaction with the real world. Can AI interact with the real world and move forward? And that's a big challenge because it cannot take inputs like real time and then, as it behaves, it cannot take input and change its behaviors. Like it's still a very hard.
Was that my pickleball example? Like if somebody's playing pickleball, then there should be an ad. Is that where you're going? That we're not quite there yet?
I think pickleball and ad, if there's demand, it's possible to do it today, actually. But that's, you have to just stream metadata from kind of the video stream constantly. And if there's a demand that's interested in pickleball ads, you could do that today, actually, with the existing technology.
Got it. Well, we literally have about 2.5 minutes left is what I'm being told. And I wanted to maybe each one of you 30 seconds, 15 seconds, think about what can consumers expect to see maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, and then we'll wrap up our discussion here. But maybe, Matt, I'll start with you. What can consumers expect to see in the next 1.5 to 2 years in terms of advertising that they're seeing in their streaming services?
Yeah, I think they'll see more customization, more ad innovation. And I think consumers, depending on where they're viewing, will feel more connected and feel, hopefully they're feeling like they're being put first in these decisioning. So it's not just a profitability path. It's really a customization and personalization in ads.
Jill?
Same. I think what we're seeing it getting better and better, and this space that we call fast or streaming, more choice is coming. You know, more and better programming is coming. More advertisers, certainly choice, and personalization.
Todd, and then Sambit.
I think we're going to see it get more complex before it gets easier. The transaction, I think transactional and interactive aspects is the big things that are going to change, but not in the way that we've talked about it before, right? I think it is going to be things like second screen. It is going to be things about being able to register intent or interest to help reinforce and drive that personalization. You know, advertisers are certainly looking for efficiency and performance, and they're going to invest any way they can to ensure that they're optimizing that. And as publishers, if we want to continue to compete, we're going to need to help drive that forward.
Sambit?
Yeah, I think like just adding on the ad experiences that's been out here, like it's linear TV, there's ad break and there's, you know, so many ads in that ad break. That's got to change, because with connected TV, there's more novel experiences that you can provide the customer without being, you know, impacting their experience that much. I think that's something you're starting to see right now, but you'll see more and more of.
Well, that is our time. I'm getting the wrap-up sign here. So I want to thank all of you guys for being here. I think we could have gone probably a whole nother hour. I had 10 more questions that I wanted to ask, but really appreciate you guys all participating in our future video session. Thank you again for being here. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time on our next session. And thank you.